Good morning, I'm Ken May with May Supply Company, and this morning we're going to talk about a process for servicing water softeners. Mainly we're going to talk about water softeners, but all the information is applicable to backwashing water filtration equipment also. When you walk into your client's house to talk about water problems that they're having or problems with their equipment, the first thing is to ask questions. Ask the homeowner questions about how long this has been going on. Does it happen every day, every third day, in the morning or in the afternoon? What their exact complaint is. Think of servicing these water softeners as not unlike being a doctor. You go see the doctor, and the doctor asks you some questions. He checks out a few things, he runs some tests, and then he kind of is on his way towards making a diagnosis. And it's a very similar type thing to treating water conditioners. After you've done this initial process of asking questions, and oh, I forgot, usually within the first 5 minutes of being in the home, I am looking in the back of the toilet tank of the homeowner's toilets. Usually I ask for which toilet they use the least, because the toilet tank is a place where water just sits. It has exposure to the atmosphere of the air, and some of them don't get used a lot, and it's not under pressure, and it's just a place for if algae are going to grow, it'll grow there. I can see the color of the stains and that kind of thing. So some of the contractors think that I'm kind of weird for asking to see the back of the toilet tank first thing, but that's just one of the things I do. We're just trying to gather information so we can make a diagnosis. Then we start talking about the equipment, and I use a little acronym called Bring the Tools Back. And we've got a B, a T, and another B. And the first B stands for bypass. I think Mike probably told me the story 20 years ago about the service call that someone made going 2 hours into West Virginia, and they got there, and the first thing they did is they looked at the bypass. Bypass is in that position, so of course we don't have any treated water going in the house. They have hard water going in the house, and it was just kind of a wasted 2-hour service call. And so it's very important. Check all the positions of the bypasses. We've got the auto-troll bypasses that you have to be very careful pushing back and forth. The SEC two-handle bypass. CSI bypass is very similar, and then there's the old quarter-turn flat bypass also. So you got to check and make sure that the bypasses are in the right position to give us treated water going to the home, and kind of rule that out as a problem. In one case, we actually found where the ball valve shaft had sheared inside of this, and even though the handle was in the down position, the ball was halfway open and was allowing untreated water to go to the house all the time. The next T is timer. In the old days, the timer was just a strict mechanical timer there with a clock on it, and we could always check, and we could look in the back of this timer, and we could see there's a little window in the motor, and see if the motor was spinning in the back. We would check the time of day. During our conversation with the customer, did they say something like, well, this only happens every third day mid-afternoon? Well, these are programmed to regenerate in the middle of the night, 2 to 4 at night, so we have to take note, or is our clock on the right AM or PM also. Timers these days are a lot more sophisticated. Everything's kind of going digital. So we have to check the time of day, check AM or PM. When we go to the water rate equipment, the impressions equipment, it's got a lot of history information that we can actually check now. We can go into history, we can see how many regenerations we've had, it even tells how many times that the homeowners run out of salt. So timer used to be pretty simple, and now it's a little bit more sophisticated because of the electronic. The next T is test, and that's test the water. When I went to Water Right 20 years ago, they always said test was the first thing to do. You should go into the house and immediately go to the kitchen sink and test the water. And that's okay. I'm not going to say that we have to do that, but my experience in reality has been I go and talk to the homeowner. The homeowner always has something they want to tell me and something they want to show me. And if Mrs. Homeowner, if she immediately wants to go to the bathroom on the 3rd floor and look at her green stains, then that's where I'm going. I'm trying to get along with the homeowner. But definitely we are going to test before we go to the 4th step, which is actually where we start messing with the unit and going through cycles and that kind of thing. We want to get a good baseline of test before we change anything on the equipment. Why would it be important to, if hardness was a complaint, to check both the cold water and the hot water?
Hot water heater is a storage tank. You don't use 50 gallons of water, hot water, immediately in one day usually.
Right.
So it tells me timestamp a day ago what was going on.
Yeah, it's a good place for water to sit in a stored place, and so it usually indicates if there's a big difference in those hardness readings that we have a capacity problem in our resin, because we'll have different readings on the hardness between hot and cold. The last B is for brining system. If you have a backwashing filter, then change that to backwash, but it's either brining or backwash. When you go to your outbreak classes on your specific equipment, make sure that as you're talking to the different manufacturers, make sure you know how to get into, first of all, how to bypass the unit, how to get into the programming, and how to run the system through its cycles. CSI's got up to 8 cycles in their valve. Water Right has 8 cycles in their valve. It's a little bit more complicated, so you need to learn from those different classes how to get through all those things. We're just going to talk this morning about a simple 4-cycle valve, and so the first cycle that we're going to check is the backwash. And when we go into backwash, we're going to put it into backwash and we're going to listen, and we're going to try to, if we can see the water going to backwash, we're going to look and take note of what color the backwash is. If we have good flow going to our drain, I don't know if you can see the standpipe here. And we're going to make sure that we don't have crimps in the drain line or breaks in the drain line. I've been on one set where the drain line was going to the outside and we are actually frozen and block of ice out there, and so we have a restriction. Don't do it like I did yesterday and explode your piping, right? So we're checking to make sure we have good backwash. Then we check the next cycle. We're going to the brining. And we have this kind of a sample of a brine tank here, clear brine tank. And as you go into your brining cycle, you'll notice that the water level will be going down, and we're actually pulling brine. You can sometimes see the brine going through the tube, going into the side of the valve here. We're checking to make sure that we don't have air leaks in some of these nuts. And eventually, if we do have a problem, we're going to pull this pickup tube out and make sure that that ball in there is floating back and forth and not stuck in one position. So we see if it pulls brine, and then we go to the next cycle, which in a 4-cycle is just a fast rinse. And fast rinse sounds very similar to the backwash, and so you'll know if you're getting good rinsing. A backwash raises the bed in the filter of the softener, and the fast rinse kind of compresses the bed back down and gets it ready to go into service. Last cycle is brine.